Hi, I'm Heidi Fleming, and I'm inviting you into my real feelings and thoughts as I go through healing after the death of my best friend, my husband. And so, one of the things that I've been talking about is triggers. And one of a large trigger for me was going to the west coast of Florida, which is where Dennis was treated. So, we went to the hospital in Tampa very many times together. We drove back and forth, and so that just always was a hard thing for me to do, even to think about. When I thought about it, I got nauseous, I cry. And so I did that last week. I went and saw my sister and her husband. And what I did was I drove about 40 minutes from my house. And then my friends drove me all the way over. So Doris and David took me from Sanford all the way to Webster, Florida, which is where we met my sister, Ermi and Steve. And we had a delightful lunch with them. And then I came back home and I cocooned here. I'm kind of like a horse. When I get out of the house, it's like I just want to come right back to the house. So that's just how I am dealing with this. It's just part of what I'm going through. And one of the questions that Doris asked me on the way home was, how was it? How did it feel to you? Or what did you do to get over? Like, what was it like? And as I thought about that, my response to her was, I really just distracted my mind. And I noticed that I do that when I meet a trigger, when I hit a trigger and I feel like I'm going to cry or I get nauseous in my stomach. Then one of the things that I try to do to help me through that is I try to take my mind somewhere else. So in that case, when I was with them, I was driving and I was sitting in the back. So I could do other things. I could read or I could listen to audiobooks or just take my mind off of actually what I was doing until I got to the place where I knew that I'd, be with my sister and with Doris and David and just be surrounded with love. And it was a nice afternoon. It was beautiful. We had a nice time. But that's what I do a lot. Even when I'm driving, I heard somebody, a therapist, say one time that when you're in a situation and you feel like the triggers are just too overwhelming, just take your mind somewhere else. And one of her tips was while she was driving, she would just look for certain things. So she said, just in her mind, she would go, the color orange. And she would just look at anything that she could find that was orange on the dashboard, a car that passed her, a sign that she passed, and then just make her mind do things that were different from that trigger. So I've been doing that, and I noticed that that does help me. And, I went over to the west side of Florida. I came back, and that was a big trigger. So that is a milestone for me as I go through my healing journey. So now I can lay that as part of my foundation as I move forward. And I know that as we all go through this journey, it's all different for each of us. And we have to go through the difficult parts to go through the difficult parts. So I had to do that hard step, and it took me a year to do that. I mean, it was in the back of my mind, and people ask me all the time, have you done it? And I couldn't get myself to do it. And then finally I set the date and made the plan and I did it, and I'm here. I survived, and it wasn't easy. And if I allow my mind to go back to that, in a second, I will be crying because it's still that emotional. So grief itself isn't linear. We don't just move from, how do you hit this milestone? You got through this, and then you just move linear through it. That's not how it is. The grief healing process takes a long time, and everybody's different, how long it will take, but it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not linear. It's like a roller coaster. It's just one minute I'm fine, the next minute I'm not so fine. Some days, multiple days in a row, I'm okay, and then something hits me and I'm not okay. And I think as I move further out away from the death date, although there are triggers to that thought, as I move further away, I feel like I can um, maybe control it a little bit better, which it doesn't seem like I'm doing that very well right now, but it makes sense in my head what I'm saying. As I talk about getting further away from the death date, I had this vision of how to explain that to people. Because one of the things that I try to do with these videos is really touch the deepest part of my heart so that it helps other people, either who are going through it or who know people who are going through it. And I had this vision of Dennis and I on a dock, and we were looking out at the water, and the water was very calm and beautiful. We were both at the end of the dock, and beneath us in the water was a boat, a rowboat. And Dennis got into the rowboat, and without him picking up the oars, the boat just positioned itself and starts going away through the water. And he just keeps moving further and further and further until it's at the horizon and I don't see it anymore. And that's what it feels like as I go day by day by day. And as we move into the holidays, I know that a lot of people are going to have difficult days. And right now, in the world that we're in 2021, there's just so much sadness and so much death going on, and people are having a hard time. And so, definitely, if you are a praying person, pray for their peace, as I do every day for widows and widowers and people who have lost loved ones in their family. But also, just be kind, because every single person is going through something, and deep, deep in their heart, it could be hurting them very seriously. And so just be kind to everyone. And if you encounter someone like me, who even a year out has lost a loved one, and you're sitting with them, sometimes there's nothing to say. Sometimes I might be the one doing all the talking, and sometimes I may ask questions and have other people talk. So just kind of feel out what each of you need as you go through the healing process. And just remember that feeling sad is totally normal, because what we're going through is really sad. And so I hope this helps. If you do identify triggers, you may want to write those down and then plan for something on how it will help you get through it. So if you have to make a drive that you're not comfortable with, does identifying certain things help distract your mind enough to get you through that? Or if you see something in a grocery store and you have a hard time finishing your shopping because it's that emotional, try to take your mind somewhere else so that you can get through that task and get back to your home safely. So I hope this helps.